In February 2020, Eden Film Production started running in-person filmmaking workshops at Union Street in Sheffield. Everything with the film was going pretty well. We had some great ideas and were going to make a documentary with a group of first-time filmmakers. It would have been something like this.
Ideas around futurism, sharing unique coming out stories, looking at the intergenerational changes that have happened within the community.
But then, of course, the pandemic happened and the project got put on ice. Until now. We've reshaped the project and film as something we could finish online and remotely. And now it's finished. And you're watching it.
Oh, hello, and welcome to the most fantabulous, spectacular, and outrageous show to ever grace your delicate and quaint ears. I am the magnificent Seraphine, and I'm here to brighten your already exquisite day. I am the queer godmother of your hopes, dreams, and let's not forget about those sordid little fantasies you keep locked away. Well, I'm here to tell you that I have the key, and oh, is it a beautiful one? Why, yes, sir, it is indeed. I want all my LGBTQIAs and allies to sashay themselves to the front. Do it loud to do it proud, and you better do it with vivacity. Our journey starts off in my hometown, the spectacular, all-encompassing New York City, baby. June 28th. The cops raid the Stonewall Inn, just like any other night. But tonight, we fight back! A crowd is outside the bar. The police inside can't get out, and police outside are faced with a mob of queers. And they are pissed. And just like that, the Stonewall riots begin. A full week of protests and rioting, and the gay rights movement was born. It's the anniversary of the riots. Christopher Street Liberation Day is held to continue the fight for our rights. And queer people all over the world are saved thanks to America.
Not quite. The story of Pride is different all around the world. Here in the UK, for example. 1972, London, UK. London Pride begins in solidarity with the events of Stonewall, just 5 years after the decriminalisation of male homosexuality in England and Wales. 1973, Brighton holds its first Pride March. It doesn't return to the city until 1991 in protest of Section 28. 1978, London. The National Front attacks the Royal Vauxhall Tavern. London's community rallies, backed with the phrase, "Gay is fun, gay is proud, gay is beautiful." 1978, the Rainbow Pride flag is created by the artist Gilbert Baker. 1985, lesbians and gays support the miners, raise funds to support hard-hit Welsh families during the miners' strike. This support leads to a relationship of mutual respect, and the families repay the support by co-leading the Pride Parade in London this year. 1988, Margaret Thatcher's government implements Section 28, banning schools to educate on LGBTQ+ issues. 1991, Northern Ireland hosts its first Pride Parade. 1995, Scotland hosts its first Pride Parade. 2000, Section 28 is repealed in Scotland. 2003, Section 28 is repealed in England and Wales. 2004, the Civil Partnership Act is introduced, allowing same-sex couples to enter legally binding partnerships. 2004, Gender Recognition Act comes into force, allowing individuals experiencing dysphoria to legally change their gender. 2005, the first UK Black Pride takes place. 2013, same-sex marriage is legalised in the UK. 2019, the first London Trans Pride takes place. 2020, the year without Pride?
Lockdown for me has been a case of reading favourite books that I'd forgotten about, connecting with old friends that I haven't seen in years, and making my first film. But on the other hand, it's also had 4 funerals, graduating virtually across a screen after I just done 3 years of my degree, and not going outside for months because I'm high risk to COVID. It's going to be one of those things that in 10 years, 20 years, there'll be books about people's journeys of self-discovery, not like in a cliche way, but in the same way as like On the Road wrote about traveling in America at that time. It's like, that's what it's like for my generation now. We're finding out who we are and what we want in one bed apartments that we don't own.
CU Pride is the LGBTQ plus society at Cardiff University, and in the years that I was studying there, it was usually the largest society based on membership numbers alone. So what is CU Pride? Why do you think it has had such an impact on students?
So CU Pride, there's now 3 LGBTQ plus societies at Cardiff Uni, us being one of them, the other being the LGBT plus association, and then TANGS, which is the Trans Society, all of which are very important and awesome societies. And I think I'm a member of all 3, and I'm on 2 of the committees, so that says a lot. But CU Pride specifically is the like social society. So we're the ones who would organise nights out and board games events and book clubs and stuff like that. So we're the ones where you go and have fun and meet people. None of the other ones aren't fun because Tangs do a lot of social events as well, but that's what we started out as.
Turning digital is quite different for CU Pride. How do you feel that being online has affected friendships? Has that negatively impacted your membership numbers, or has being digital opened that up more?
I think it's kind of both. I think that obviously it's not what we wanted, but generally I'd say sort of every year we have our first social where, you know, up to 200 people turn up to one event, and it's huge. You have to try and fill them up into the upstairs of Kings. But those numbers kind of dwindle at every social until you get 10, 15 people to each one, and even less new people. I think this year's a lot different in that. I think the people who started joining, a lot more of them stayed. So we have a lot more of a consistent interaction, I guess, with newer members. And we have a lot who are really active and show up to every social and stay on the call until like 4 a.m. and things like that.
What kind of events have you been doing now online?
So we've done a lot. I think we ended up deciding that we do at least one social a week. So we started off with our freshers events, and then we have the family system where basically older members, second, third, fourth years, basically pair up and adopt newer members and just keep an eye on them, which, you know, is how I met some of my closest friends. It's how a lot of us do. And it's a really nice system. And it just means that you're, you know, kept an eye on. And that was really important this year because obviously it's a lot harder to keep an eye on people when you can't see them in person. And then one of our social secs, Kate, came up with the idea of literally making our own Zoom club. And basically what we did for the first one is we had a Zoom call and we made breakout rooms for different styles of music. So we had a pop room, which I ran. It was great. We had a punk emo room and we had an 80s room. And it worked really well because we had a lot of people. I think there were about 60, 70 people on the Zoom call at one point.
How do you think that the year that you've had digitally is going to affect CU Pride itself in the future?
I think it's definitely going to have an impact. I think things are hopefully going to change in terms of accessibility because this is a lot easier for people to join and enjoy when, you know, they have disabilities or they're not comfortable. So I hope that, you know, transfers into future years, and that's something we think about more than we have done. Because, you know, everyone deserves to enjoy the space that we create.
It's a social enterprise that works within the LGBT plus community, and we specialise in running filmmaking workshops specifically for that community alongside doing screening events. We also run a film festival called Transforming Cinema.
Well, Out in the City is a social and support group for members of the LGBT plus communities, but mainly in Greater Manchester, and it's for people who are over 50. So the group is a social group, a support group, people who identify as LGBT, or don't want to put a label on themselves. Well, the oldest member of the group is Jim, who's 91. We've got a few people in their 80s. I don't know what the average age is, but there's quite a number of people in the 70s as well. If for anybody over 50, we have meetings, we have trips out, and we're a very active group. We have a website, and it's a real support for, us older people who've gone through a lot in our lives. Before COVID happened, we had regular meetings on Wednesday. We used to meet in the centre of Manchester for a couple of hours, have tea, coffee, have a chat. And then on a Thursday, we'd have a trip out. We'd been to Blue John Mines, to Yorkshire Sculpture Park. We got on the train to Liverpool or St Helens Glass. Unfortunately, in March 2020, COVID happened, and we had to stop most of our activities. I'm trying to keep in touch with everybody by doing a lot of website posting, so twice a week, so that people can keep in contact. And I've made lots of phone calls, and people have supported each other through phone calls and text messages. I think over 50 of us live alone. So, some people live with other partners or whatever, but most of us, the majority of us, live alone. And it can be very lonely and isolating in that situation. So it's really important for the group that we've been able to support each other and to have meetings. And it's not the same doing Zoom meetings or telephone calls. To actually, see people, it's so important.
And one of the sort of things that has been better about, working from home, it's not an obvious thing, I think, but around gender expectations, in terms of I'm expected to dress a certain way and act a certain way and be part of this sort of group of a team of people who are behaving a certain way. And I've found that working from home, I can be more flexible. I don't need to do these things. I don't need to dress this way. Nobody cares. As long as you're wearing clothes, nobody cares what you're wearing, when you're working from home.
Andrew and Eve is an arts organisation set up to develop and celebrate queer culture. And we've been active in Sheffield for 4 years and in Doncaster 1.5 years. We've got a reach throughout South Yorkshire, and people come to us from Nottingham, Manchester, Leeds, basically for a big queer night out, but with added drag kings and a real sense of inclusivity and celebration. And we're known for drag king cabarets, The Kingdom Come, Rate Queer Do, which is a queer cabaret showcasing fresh talent, and workshops, which are drag king workshops, tend to be our genderless performance. We also do lots of stuff online and bring community together. And we used to do all sorts of socials and that before the pandemic.
Andrew and Eve does some really innovative and inclusive and good stuff throughout the pandemic. Would you like to tell me a bit more about what you've done?
The way we tried to adapt to the pandemic was to think about being online, and our drag king workshops had been popular in the past, and we thought there was legs in let's try and put this online and have it informal and fun. So that was one strand. But then, of course, we already had people that had been through that process, and we knew we were at a point where we wanted to develop more talent. And that's when we came up with the idea of a cabaret college, something to go more in depth with people and give them more space and time to develop their cabaret or drag acts. And then the final thing we thought was there's going to be a lot of people that won't want to engage online, that will be exhausted. I mean, I don't think we all understood how digitally fatigued we all would be through the pandemic, but we clocked on quite early to that. And when we put our application for emergency funding to Arts Council, we put in for print publication, which became Centrezine.
So what sort of feedback did you get from participants in these projects?
So with the Drag King workshops, we were quite astounded by the popularity. The sort of feedback we got was I wouldn't have got involved if this hadn't have been online. I would have been too shy. Some people said that it was really good how it interacted with either their jobs or their caring responsibilities. people who had already done some stuff with us through the Drag King workshops, they said that the Cabaret College helped them progress their ideas and challenge them, and they had space to go away and work on stuff, which was really nice. And with Centazine, we just got great feedback in terms of visibility and hearing stories, especially from older members of the LGBT community who had shared their wisdom or passed on their ideas. So it has been very positive, the feedback we've got, and that's kind of kept us all going, really. In terms of the future, I think what we'd keep is to have an online offer, particularly for Drag King workshops, because I think a lot of people wouldn't feel confident enough to come into a physical space or not be able to for whatever access reasons they have. So we like the idea of keeping some kind of introductory workshop online and just have it really informal. And then maybe that'll give people the confidence to come and meet us in person and come to an event. And I think it's been nice exploring different mediums. I think, you know, as awful as this pandemic has been, we have found it interesting to explore like print, for example, to reach new people. And I think I'd like to take that forward in terms of, you know, the kinds of people we engage with and how we reach new people. I'm sure that could be pushed further.
Is there anything else you'd like to add, you know, regarding your experiences of how, you know, how the pandemic and how lockdown has been for you?
We were in our second year when COVID hit, which is a really crucial time for any business or social enterprise. And we are a not-for-profit social enterprise, even though, you know, we're not here to make money, but we do need to make money to be sustainable. And I think it's been a real challenge, but also quite confident building to be able to survive thus far. I mean, you know, we haven't grown, but we have sort of kept going, and that for me is a huge part of pride for the team around me and the people we've worked with, and that we've actually managed to still connect with our community in that time.
So in the last couple of years, in terms of pride, I had actually kind of started to hate it. Like Pride 2019, I got all dressed up and I was ready to go and be queer and be full of pride. I stepped outside my door and went, fuck this, I'm not going to Pride. And then I went back inside, changed into a swimsuit, and went swimming in the ocean. It's gotten so big. It's a bit like Rome, where it's gotten so big that the main idea of it has sort of been lost. So I'm wondering if going forward we're going to find sort of our roots again as a community. I'd love that. I'd go back to Pride for that.
I think, well, obviously Pride has changed over the years. You know, originally it was a very political organisation. We were there shouting for our rights, you know, and we were joined by, you know, left-wing groups as allies. We supported other groups, you know, like the miners and so on. In the mid-70s, I used to go to Pride in London. In 1981, the National Pride was moved to Huddersfield, and that was to support LGBT community in Huddersfield, as the police were constantly raiding a club there called the Gemini Club. Pride started in Manchester, I think in the mid-80s. I'm not quite sure of the date. Last year, obviously, because of COVID, we weren't able to have Pride in the general, in the normal sense of having thousands of people gathering together. And the LGBT Foundation organised, and the Pride Committee organised a socially distanced parade. We were all given a time to turn up, so like 15-minute slots. And although it was done in a very different way this year, it was, you know, I thought it was very important.
I do remember Cardiff Pride, the end of my first year, so 16 months ago-ish. I remember being in the parade, and it was a lot calmer than London, because obviously Cardiff's not as big as London. We were walking in it with the society. I remember high-fiving a bunch of little kids walking along the high street. That was nice. That was cool. And I had a sign that said bisexual and beautiful. And actually, hang on. I've got it here. That, which you can't really because it's fancy, but it was really pretty. I remember stopping because there was a delay in the parade, and this woman came up to me and was like, "Yeah, you are beautiful," and then she gave me a sweet.
Oh.
Yeah, it was little things like that that I think I remember the most.
Well, I remember when it started, when lockdowns began last year. So I was 2 weeks away from finishing a full-time job, and then they announced, "Oh, we're going into lockdown, so just don't come into work anymore." So didn't get to end my job properly. Eventually managed to secure a temporary JSA. They call it the New Style JSA and try and see if I can secure some work for when we can, when lockdown's lifted. I don't know, I guess I feel like everyone else has said, sort of re-evaluating who I am and what I want to do. Is I know what I want to do, but my problem has always been I don't know how to get there. That has always been my issue, and I never know how to get to where I want to be. How has lockdown affected the running of Say It, including projects and activities?
We run 2 regular youth groups, well 3 really. So Fruitball is our under 18 group, which is weekly on a Thursday, and that was split in younger group and older group. So younger is 11 to 14, and older is 15 to 17, and that was both on a Thursday night, and then there was a bit of a crossover. And then we have a over 18 group, which is called Prism, that runs monthly on a Wednesday, and both of those were face to face. So we've managed to move that online. So we're now running under 18 weekly groups, and we've merged that older and younger Fruitball, and we're still running our monthly groups. We've done things over Instagram, we've done some poetry competitions, some drawing competitions. We definitely noticed like a decrease in our young people's mental health. Because of this, we set up something called our care package scheme, which meant we've actually in our 3rd round of doing that. So our young people can apply for certain things that they need. One of the most popular items on there is sensory toys, but other things, like we've got a lot of like Pride stuff. We also send out binders. We send out a lot of self-care products like bath bombs and face masks. We also send some chocolates and some crisps in there as well, cuddly toys. But we also have a long list, and also people can write on there as well some of the things that they're interested in, and we send out those, and that has been so well received. In this recent round, I've actually had 65 young people request a care package. And we're also started a text service, which we didn't have prior to lockdown as well. So we created an online text service, which means the youth workers can log in. And on a Monday, Wednesday and Friday, 3 till 5, youth workers are basically all on a mobile. So young people can text in with any problems whatsoever. And we also have our own app called Minga. It's just a way that they can communicate with each other and, just share if they've been on a walk, or, share a drawing that they've done, or, anything like that. Just like I said, to keep up that community feel. So we did a survey of our young people late last year, and the results were 64.6% of our young people said that lockdown had a negative impact on their mental health. 42.1% of young people said they had a decrease in self-esteem and confidence. 32.2% of our young people felt less safe as a result of lockdown. 67.7% said they had problems with home life during lockdown. And 58.1% said they felt isolated as a result of the coronavirus pandemic. With a lot of our young people, they are most of them are still living with their parents, their guardians, and in a lot of circumstances they're not accepted by them. And we also talk about the big difference between being tolerated and accepted. They can live in homes where they haven't been kicked out. It doesn't mean that their family members, parents, guardians, carers are using the correct pronouns for them, or celebrating their gender identity, or validating their own experiences. And a lot of time our young people actually find those people that celebrate themselves in other areas, so mainly school. There could be a particular teacher at school, obviously their peer support. So there's a lot of social support that they're not getting. So in terms of the people that validate them and celebrate them, there's been a lot less of that, and they're having to be a different version of themselves rather than their authentic selves. And in terms of supporting the young people, I think it just shows how needed our service is. Our referrals have actually gone up, not down. The fact that now we don't have our centre where we have our bean bags and our sensory toys and music and all the fun things that you think the youth group come to, even now when it's just sat in their bedrooms, headphones on and us waffling away, we're still getting young people come to us. We're still having constant demand for one-to-ones and counselling, and on one hand it's sad, it's awful that we're needed so much, but on the other hand I feel so proud that we've managed to adapt and still offer that support.
For instance, I did 4 different jobs before lockdown happened, and I thought it was just normal because, like, being a freelancer and, you know, trying to make it in the creative industries, that's just what everyone does. And it's normalized, and, like, you know, you work, like, 1 week you'll work like 60 hours and the next week you might work like 5. But that's actually not very normal, nor is it healthy in terms of, like, just knowing yourself. So now that lockdown's happened, like, there are beautiful things, like picking up old hobbies, discovering, like, new interests, like literally just, like, being in wonder to go out in a park, like most people in big cities. So I live in London. Most people in big cities don't do that. They're just, like, on the go all the time. First off, do you want to, like, introduce what the Outside Project does and, like, how it came about?
Yeah, sure. The Outside Project began in 2017. Actually, a little bit before that. It's probably more around kind of the autumn time of 2016 when we were really talking about setting up a project that was specific to LGBTIQ plus people. And when I say we, that's like me and my colleagues working in the homelessness sector, and friends as well. Those conversations kind of were put to one side over that winter period because obviously we were frontline workers, and our focus was really there. But then in February 2017, that's when we first held our first steering group. That was where we invited professionals from across the homelessness sector and the LGBT sector to listen to our ideas of what we wanted to do. That first 6 months, it was a lot of meetings, just discussing how we were going to do this. So around about May, we decided that we would just launch a crowdfunder, and we would try to self-fund the project and get small grant funding. And a member of the steering group suggested that we buy a tour bus and use that as the venue, because that was the issue, was trying to find a venue for the shelter. So we bought our own tour bus, and we were ready in time to open for that winter shelter 2017-18. And when we reopened in winter 2018, it wasn't just a winter shelter anymore, it was a year-round shelter. And then in 2019 to 20, it went from being a night shelter to a 24-hour space. And now, this year, obviously with COVID and everything else that's been going on, we became a 24-hour service altogether.
What would you say are the biggest effects of COVID on the LGBT plus community?
Isolation has been huge. I think our community, we don't really have many social spaces. You know, we don't have community centres and things like that that other more marginalised groups would have. So I think that we meeting in bars and cafes and, you know, that entertainment industry, that was our social space for a lot of people, alongside those industries being a source of income. So a lot of people lost their income because there's no cabaret, there's no bars, there's no hospitality industry, just closed down. But then they also lost their social connections as well. I think one of the first things that we did as an organisation was set up a bit of an advice link between a DWP worker, benefits advisor, and our community through the virtual community centre. We called it the National Handbag. I think that was the first response that the Outside Project made, was that to try and give people advice on how to claim benefits and housing benefits so that they didn't lose their housing. I'm so proud to be part of this community. Like, really am. You can see, like, straight away just everyone just sharing knowledge. You know, people were making, like, lists and information packs and, you know, things like that. Again, like, online. I think we set up the London LGBTIQ plus mutual aid group mid-March. We had like 2,000 members pretty much instantly. People looking to volunteer to support their neighbours.
Pride to me is a validation, and it's a permission to be myself. And growing up, I was very confused. I didn't know who I was or what I should be. So Pride is a way of just saying you can be whoever you want to be, and that's okay. And it's a community to say you're not alone, and that there are people who will big you up and who will really who you'll be able to connect with in a way that you might not necessarily have before. Well, I hope that we're still able to make it as big and as proud as we are, even though the world's in a way it's getting quite smaller and we're disconnecting. So I hope we're able to get back to that place in the near future where we can all come together and be one, because it's brilliant seeing just how proud people are and how big it is, but it can also be very daunting. So I think we need to make sure that we're bringing people in the safest way possible. I'm definitely hopeful.
The first time I went to Pride was London Pride in 1995. I went in secret. Hardly anyone but my closest friends knew that I fancied girls at that point. I'm a girlfriend. It was very emotional. I lied to my parents about where I was going. I said I was going to Blackpool in case they found out it was Pride weekend that weekend. We went down there and it was just so amazing to see so many beautiful people all proud of who they were and be able to hold my girlfriend's hand and even kiss her in public, which is something that's quite frightening to do in Liverpool, where I was from. Unless you were, inside a gay club, you wouldn't do that. And there were all these people, chanting and having such a great time, and it just felt so liberating. I remember dodging the TV cameras just on the off chance it might make it onto the evening news that my parents were watching. And even now, I go to all these Pride events. I've been to many, many over the years, and it still gives me that rush of sort of feeling included and feeling liberated and feeling, part of something bigger and part of something amazing. And, I think we've all missed that this last year, and we really hope we can get that back again.
I think our community has dealt with a similar thing and can really help lead that conversation, because we know what it's like to come out into a world where a generation of young people have died and it doesn't make any sense, and we don't know what. We had a virus we didn't understand, and nobody did what they were supposed to do to contain it before it was a pandemic. And just a lot of parallels have been going on. And I think as queer people, we've got through it before, so it almost proves we can do it again. It's just our generation's turn to do it.
So Shade is a group based in Bradford, and it's for LGBT people of colour. I've been going for the last about three years. And it's part of a network of different groups across the whole country. So there are residentials where we all meet up, which is great. You get to network with people all across England. I think Shade is a big a compound between education and also just having fun. So we really explore our views and opinions. We go into politics a little bit. And really try to understand what LGBT and being a person of colour means, because a lot of people who are part of this group are very new to their sexuality. So it's a safe space where we can just educate each other and really understand all the different groups within the LGBT community, because there's like a big variety of us. And it's really interesting to see our different perspectives, because we all come from like different backgrounds.
How have you and others from Shade stayed connected to each other during the pandemic and lockdowns and social distancing?
So we have a group chat, so we're always connected, and obviously the rules of the pandemic have been changing, so we've been adapting whilst they've been changing. When we were down in the tiers, we were able to open the group up a little bit, and then otherwise we've been doing online sessions over Zoom, where we can't do exactly what we did in the normal sessions, but we play games, we still communicate. Just a lot of it is checking up on each other, making sure that we all feel good within with what's going on around the world.
How important has this community that you've got through Shade been to you personally over the past year?
This community really helped me to grow that part of myself, as well as be able to relate and communicate with people like me. Especially within the pandemic in the last year, it's been really useful because last year for a big moment in time, I was actually living alone. So they really helped me stay in touch. They really helped bring that community and really helped me be able to like keep going in a creativity sense as well, because we've been planning activities and things together. So they've really made a big impact on me personally.
So, the pandemic may have put lots of things on hold and caused some terrible tragedies, but it's also highlighted how resilient and determined the LGBTQ+ community is. So many organisations and people have adapted to become more accessible, kinder and helpful at a time when it would have been easy to do nothing. This might have been the year without a physical Pride, but the community still marches on together, regardless.
You see,
Bye.